welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Kat, and today we're going to be talking about the books that I've read so far in 2023. I was going to do a January, February wrap up all in one, but the timing of filming, it's just not working. Today is February 20th, so I still have some time in February. There might be more books that I read this month. Yvonne actually gave me the idea to do what I've read so far. That way I wasn't stressed about it has to be January and February and I need to make sure to film it. It just kind of took the stress off of that for me. So I hope that it's okay that it's not my full January and February wrap up. I just wanted to kind of go over the books that I've currently read, and then maybe later down the line I'll get a little bit more consistent on doing monthly wrap-ups of what I've read. For right now, it's just the current reads that I've read in January and February. I'm sorry if I sound a little bit tired. I did not get great sleep last night because I decided yesterday at 3 p.m. to drink a Red Bull real casually. Went to bed pretty late because I could not fall asleep. My brain did not want to shut off even though my body felt so exhausted. But I have coffee. I took it really slow this morning, so we should be good. I just want to give a little disclaimer on some of these books cover some heavy topics, and I just want you to make sure to check the content warnings on all these books before you dive in to make sure it'll be a good book for you to read. But yeah, without any further ado, let's dive into these books. I'm going to try and cover them as much as I can, but I also don't want this video to be super long. So we'll start off with the first read of 2023, which is Luster by Raven Leilani. And this one I actually was still reading in December, but I talked about this in one of my vlogs. I didn't finish it in December when I could have because I had 20 pages left, but I didn't want to end my 2022 reading goal on an odd number, so I wanted to leave it at a 70. So I didn't finish it, and I waited a few days before diving back into this, and I do think that might have affected my reading. I think reading at the end of the year where my brain is already kind of exhausted from all the holidays, and my brain just wants reality TV and to chill on the couch and not necessarily sit with a book. But I did really like this one. What this book is about is we're following Edie as she is getting involved with a man who has an open marriage. So they're getting together, they're kind of dating, they're talking. Edie's kind of just in her 20s, and she's kind of navigating through life, trying to figure out what to do. She loses her job and she ends up actually staying in the husband, his name's Eric's house, with his wife and daughter Akila. Their daughter is adopted. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic where Edie's kind of helping out and also interacting with the wife, and it's just an interesting relationship to read about. Not even necessarily Edie with Eric, but Edie with the wife and their adopted daughter. Just seeing how that relationship kind of grows a bit. I don't know, it's this silent relationship where they don't really say much to each other, but you can feel that they are trying to understand each other a little bit and help each other out in this very quiet way. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I wish I would have read this at a different time of year. I think this is one that I want to give a reread because I just don't think my brain fully took the time with this one. And it's a short read, so I feel like this one would be a perfect one to do a reread of. I think this is a debut novel, so anything else that Raven Leilani comes out with, I definitely want to pick up. All right, and then the second book that I've read in 2023 in January is Butter Honey Pig Bread. This one has been on my list forever. I know this is a Bookstagram favorite. I always see so many good reviews on it. So many people love this one. And so I was excited to finally, in 2023, dive into this one. So basically the synopsis is we're following 3 women. We're following Kambaranachi, and she's the mother, and she has 2 twin daughters, Kainde and Taye. And this part is kind of confusing for me to explain because my brain, I feel like it didn't fully grasp it, but Kambaranachi, she thinks that she's a spirit, an Ogbanji. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I'll include text on the screen, and that basically is a spirit who's constantly dying and being reborn, and one day she chooses to not die and stay alive, stay human, and because of that choice she feels there's going to be consequences because she kind of messed with what should be happening, where she should be dying and then being reborn again. So we follow that storyline a bit, and then we also follow the 2 twin daughters where something traumatic happens to one of them, and this event affects the relationship between the 2 sisters and the mother. So we follow their lives as they're growing up. We follow them as they're older and adults, and what they get up to in their lives, and how their relationship is, and how they interact with each other after the event. This is a multiple point of view, so every chapter is someone else's view, which is my absolute favorite. I love when books do that. I feel like it just gives so much insight on like a different person's perspective and just adds so much to this book. There was so many food descriptions in this book, and I don't know, I really enjoyed reading it. The descriptions, the writing was so like lush and beautiful. I think the only part is that some of the sections in the book on the spirit aspect of it, I feel like it kind of went over my head a little bit. I had a harder time grasping that, but overall, I really enjoyed this one. I think it's a really beautiful read, and if you like multiple points of views, if you love reading about food descriptions, if you love reading about like familial relationships, I think you would really enjoy this one. All right, the next book that I read is You Made a Fool of Death. Oh my God, I swear I can never say this title. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi, and I read this one. I have a reading log on it. I'll include it down below if you're interested in watching. I don't say too much. Like looking back at that reading log, I'm like, wow, I just said this was good and juicy and messy, and I didn't really give much else, but I did this as a buddy read with Liv, and we had a really good time voice noting about it. It was I don't want to say wild and messy again, but it was. The synopsis is basically we're following Faye, who it's been like years and years since she was in an accident where her husband passed away, and she's trying to navigate that. She's grieving that loss, and she's trying to start living her life again. I don't want to give too much because I feel like this is one of those books where I think it's better to go into it not knowing much. There is like a taboo relationship in it, so just keep that in mind, but besides that, I don't think you should know anything else about it. Just read it. I think it was the perfect read for me when I was feeling like I was starting to get into a little bit of a slump. The relationship between Faye and her best friend was my favorite. I could read a whole book on them. I thought that their friendship was so fun to read about. But yeah, this is one I don't want to say too much about because I just don't want to spoil anything. I think it's good to not know much about it. Okay, so the next book that I read in January was Nevada? Is it Nick? Why do I feel like I'm saying that weird? Okay, anyways, it's Nevada. I'm in a book club, and that was our pick for the month of January, I believe. So we read this one. I originally wanted to read this one because of Kayla's review. I did talk about that in the vlog, but this book was published in 2013. So it's something that I didn't really know at first, and I feel like it is kind of important to know when it was published. We followed a trans woman named Maria, and she's living in New York City and working in a bookstore. She's in a relationship with Steph, but that's not really going that great. Their relationship is kind of on the rocks. They're not really talking. Maria's kind of just like floating along, or basically like in her brain. All her thoughts were following through, and I am so conflicted on how I feel about this book because there were times where I was reading it and I really enjoyed it, and it felt like I was like kind of like flying through it. But then there was other moments where some of the language, like it felt very casual. There was a lot of likes and whatever's thrown in, which for some reason that really like pulled me out of the book. But then there was also parts where I was like, no, I kind of enjoy it because it feels like a very like human thing. Like I say like a lot, I throw in whatever's. So I've tried talking to a few people about it, and I can't decide how I feel about it. I respect this book. Like I can totally see why this is a cult classic and why it made such an impact as like a trans novel. I don't know if reading it in 2013 if I would have felt differently. The ending is a bit abrupt. By a bit, I mean very abrupt. There's actually two parts to this novel. There's like the first half and then the second half. The second half I was kind of confused because it felt like a completely different story. So that threw me off a little bit. There was one chapter where we follow Steph, which is Maria's girlfriend, and it's her point of view, and I really liked that. Something that Kayla said in her review, which I'll include a link to that below, is that this is just like one trans person's experience, and I think that's very important. Not everyone's experience is going to be the same. So I'm still struggling with this one. I think I liked it, didn't love it, didn't hate it, but if it's a book that you're interested in, I definitely think you should give it a read. Okay, I'm sorry. I feel like the light is probably changing. It feels like it's like right on me. The next book that I read is Writers and Lovers, and this is one that was also on my list for the longest time, but it was also one of the books that when I first started seeing it everywhere, I was like, oh, that's probably not a book that I want to read. Fully judged this book by its cover, and it ended up being so good. I enjoyed it very much, so I would love to read more from Lily King. I know she has a short story collection, and I think she has another novel. I could be totally wrong, but I'd like to read more from Lily King. Basically, in this one, we're following Casey, and she unexpectedly loses her mother. We're following her as she's grieving that loss and trying to navigate her life. She's a writer, but she's having a hard time writing anything to submit. So there's that added pressure, and she has a job. She works as a waitress. There's just bills that are piling on, and we just watch her kind of live. The novel takes place in Massachusetts, which I always hear people like talking about books that take place where they are and that they really like it. And I'm like, I don't know if I've ever read a book that takes place where I live, but maybe I haven't, I'm just forgetting. But I really enjoyed that it took place in Massachusetts and that there were so many places that were being talked about in the book that I know of, I've been to, I've heard of. I thought that was really cool. I could visualize it so perfectly in my brain, and I don't know how to describe it, where this book felt so cozy, but also really heartbreaking and sad. I felt for Casey. I don't know, I just really enjoyed this one. I'm really glad I ended up picking it up. I think it was a perfect winter read. So if it's something that you're interested, I definitely suggest reading it in the winter. It just feels like that for me. Or the fall. I feel like winter or fall would be like the perfect time for these books. And I don't know if it's just like in my brain, I'm imagining like New England, like Massachusetts in the winter fall. So that's Writers and Lovers. So that's all I read for the month of January. How many is that total? So that's 5 total, unless I'm doing the math wrong. So now we're into February, and the next book that I read was Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. This one was heavily influenced by Allie and my friend Lindsay. Lindsay loves this one. It was just like such a tiny book, and I found a used copy of it probably in the summer time, I think. So it's been on my shelves for a few months now, and I really wanted to pick it up. I felt like this could be a fun winter read. So basically the synopsis of this is our main character Amanda is in a hospital and she's dying. There's a little boy in the room with her, and they're just talking about the events that took place in the days prior to kind of lead up to her being in the hospital. That alone sounded so interesting to me. This felt like such a fever dream. It makes sense. I felt like it was so eerie. I didn't want to put this down. This, like, the text, it's like very spaced out, very like, it's a quick read. There's no chapters in this. It's just one long chapter. Maybe that adds to the whole like fever dream feel where you're just like constantly reading through, but I really loved Samantha Schweblin's writing, and I could visualize this in my head. Like it felt like I was watching like an A24 movie. Like I could see this being turned into a film.
All right, hi, this is Editing Cat here, and I just wanted to make a little note that this book was actually made into a movie, and I completely forgot. I had 2 people reach out to me on Instagram when I had posted that I finished reading this book and that it was turned into a movie, and that it was actually a very good movie, and it's one that I want to watch. While I was filming this, I completely forgot about that, and I'm laughing at myself watching this now, where I'm like, this could be a movie, because it already is. All right. Okay, back to the video. Hi.
I'm really glad I finally read this. I already got another copy of a Samantha Schweblin book, so I'm very excited to read that one and read more from her backlist. But yeah, that was Fever Dream. Okay. And then the next book that I read was The Days of Abandonment, which it's funny thinking about it now and looking back, because this one also felt like a fever dream for me when I was reading it. Basically, we're following Olga, and her husband has decided he wants to leave, doesn't want to be married to her anymore. He leaves her and their 2 kids as well as their dog, and we're just following Olga as she's processing this and figuring out what happened, what went wrong, kind of spiraling a bit, and also having to take care of their 2 kids and their dog, and that's a lot to manage while you're feeling a certain type of way. So this is a very short read, and I am so glad that Ivana, we're at the bookstore and she was like, you need to take it home with you. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm doing it. I'm taking it with me. And I'm so glad I did. And I'm so glad I own this. And I'll probably want to buy all of Ferrante's books. But this book was so good. There's one specific portion of this book where it felt like such a fever dream. And I was kind of stressed reading through it because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Elena Ferrante really, I don't know, captured that grieving so well, and like the different like cycles you kind of go through trying to process all of this. I feel like this is a short read, so you could fly through it, but I did actually end up taking my time with this, mostly because my brain could only read so many pages at a time. But I also don't know how I would have been if I read this all in one go. I feel like that would have really like messed with my head. Yeah, I'm so glad I picked this up. I was initially really nervous to read a Ferrante. I was nervous that it wasn't going to be very accessible for me, but it was pretty good. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad I started with this one because it's on the shorter side, and now I know, and I have the first book in the Neapolitan series, so that will be the next read that I dive into. But yeah, I really, really liked this one. I'll be reading more Elena Ferrante for sure. Okay, so the final book that I've read so far in February is Fruit Punch by Kendra Allen. This is a memoir and I'm doing a buddy read with Mads on this one. And the synopsis is we're following Kendra Allen as she's growing up. She grew up living in Dallas, Texas, and we see her relationship with her mom, her dad, her family. There's some traumatic experiences that happened to her as she's growing up. She's kind of trying to heal from that. This was absolutely beautiful. I don't think anything I'm gonna say is going to do this book justice.
All right, editing Kat here again because I forgot to read a quote that really stuck with me in Fruit Punch, and I just wanted to share it with you all. All right, so for some reason, we equate suffering to perseverance and misinterpret the gravity of shame, the duration of its presence, how we always end up stuck in the ages it starts. Dang, that one really stuck with me. So just wanted to pop it in. All right, back to the video.
I love Kendra Allen's brain and how she thinks about things and how she views things, like the way she was describing some of the events that were happening. There's like poetry sprinkled within, even some of there's some sections that are just poems. There are some chapters where she's talking to a therapist. I really enjoyed those chapters, hearing her kind of process that and talk through it. I think this is such a great memoir. It's very tiny, but it's heavy. I also listened to it on audiobook as well, and I really enjoyed that experience. This was a really great read. I picked this up because of Olivia's review on it, and it was so good. I want to read more from Kendra Allen. I think she has a poetry collection, and normally I'm not big on poetry because my brain, I feel like it's too small. My brain can only take in so much, but I'd really love to read more from Kendra. Her writing is just absolutely beautiful, and I highly recommend this memoir. It was a great memoir to start off the year with. I haven't read it. This is my first memoir of the year, and it was great. So those are all the books that I've read so far this year. I'm hoping I have some graphic novels and one other romance novel that I'm currently reading that I'm hoping maybe I'll be able to finish in February, but who knows. In these wrap up types of videos, I wanted to do little check-ins on my challenges that I'm currently participating in. So I have my reading goal, which is to read 50 books this year, and I'm also participating in 4 other challenges. The 4 challenges I'm participating in is Shake Up Your Shelves, and that's being hosted by Sally and Alex. I'm also participating in the 10 Books, 10 Decades challenge, and that's being hosted by Reggie at Reggie Reads. I also want to do the 5 rereads challenge that was created by Kayla, and the last challenge I'm participating in is the 12 books recommended by 12 friends challenge. So a lot of little challenges, and the way that I'm kind of tackling this is I'm not setting a TBR. I am too much of a mood reader to set a set TBR. Last year I did try and do the 10 books, 10 decades challenge, and that just didn't work out for me because I had that set list and I didn't read a lot of those books. So the way I'm kind of going about it is I'm reading books and keeping these challenges in mind when I'm reading. And that was fully suggested to me by Ivana because we were talking about the 10 books, 10 decades challenge, and I was like, I've been doing such a bad job, and she suggested, why don't you just kind of read and then set them based on the decades, and just keep that in mind as you're reading, could this work with that challenge? So that's what I'm doing with all of my challenges, just to take the weight off of that a little bit for me and not stress about a set TBR for all of these challenges. So as a little check-in, I'm currently at 8 books out of 50. So seems like I'm on track. For all of the challenges that I mentioned as well, I'll include all of the information down below. I'll include links to their channel, to their Instagram. If there's a Storygraph challenge, I'll include that all below for you so you have access to it. For the 10 books, 10 decades challenge, Reggie has a bookshop.org link. On that bookshop.org site, he has created different decades with a bunch of different books that you could read from that decade. So it makes it really easy if you're not sure, oh, what's a book from 1980s? You can take a look there and look through all the options that Reggie added for you. So let's do a little check-in on where I'm at with each of those challenges and if I've read anything for them. So up first, for the Shake Up Your Shelves challenge, I have 2 prompts that I was able to complete. The first one is a book by a genderqueer author. I'm going to be putting You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty for that prompt. I'm going to be using the Butter Honey Pig Bread for the book that takes place in a different continent. That one takes place in a few different continents, so that one works for that. So far, on that challenge, I'm 2 out of 16, which leaves me at 13% complete for that challenge. So making my way. Okay, for the 10 books, 10 decades challenge, I'll also be using Butter Honey Pig Bread. That's going to be for a book written in 2020s. The next book that I'm going to be marking as complete for the 10 books, 10 decades challenge is Nevada. So Nevada was written in 2013. And then the next book for this challenge is going to be The Days of Abandonment. I'll be using that for a book written in the 2000s. So far I have 3 prompts complete, which brings me to 30% complete. So I'm really impressed with myself because this is the year I want to make sure I complete this challenge since I missed that one last year. So we'll see. So far I'm doing pretty good though. The next challenge is the 5 rereads for 2023, and unfortunately I did not do any rereads, so this one I have not been able to check anything off, but hopefully in the next few months. I'm not going to add too much pressure on myself for this one because it's 5 books and I'm hoping I'll be able to do that later on in the year. All right, for the 12 books, 12 friends, I picked Writers and Lovers for this prompt. This was recommended to me by Liv, and that's the only book so far that I've read for this challenge, so that brings me to 8% complete. So I'm making my way. So that's 12 books recommended by 12 friends. That's where I'm at with that. I feel really good about the progress that I'm making on some of these challenges because at first I did feel a little bit like doing 4 different challenges on top of my reading goal was going to be a lot, but I do feel like I'm making progress. I'm making my way through and I feel really good about how that's going for me. But yeah, that's all that I've read so far this month, in the past 2 months, but feeling really good about the books that I've read. I feel like there's been a lot of really good ones. Yeah, I'm excited to see what I'm able to finish in the month of February, as well as what books I end up reading in March. So I'd love to know what your favorite read so far in 2023 has been, if you have one. I'd also love to know, like, are you participating in any challenges? Are you participating in any of the ones that I'm in? Or is this the first time you've heard of some of them? Let me know. I'd love to know. I'd love to talk about that down below in the comments. But yeah, that's this video. I did it. I completed it. This is my first set of wrap-ups for the year of 2023, and I was kind of intimidated because I have a horrible memory, so I needed to like make sure that I took some notes throughout so I could talk about these books and not miss anything. And I'm sure I missed stuff. I always miss stuff. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.